How can our viewers adjust or adopt that kind of futurist mindset in their daily lives to anticipate and adapt to shifts, whether it's in their industry or any profession that is going to have them be prepared and ready to have success?
That's a great question. So let's talk just for a moment about futurists. So event planners hire a range of futurist speakers, and some of them talk kind of about the science fiction future, right? 10 years or more out. Some people talk about the technologies that are happening right now. What I focus on really is the 5-year future, not because should have like a 5-year plan, right? But because when you're thinking about the world 90 days from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, what you always wanted to do is be prepared for what happens next. And when you think, 5 years out, 2030, the year after Donald Trump, so much will be different, and yet we can know so much about it. And it's also just long enough for us to be able to pivot if the world isn't quite as we had assumed and to reinvent. And so what I really recommend people do is think about that 5-year future. Some simple ways to do it. If you're younger, in your 20s or early 30s, ask people in their 50s, ask people in their 60s, ask your grandparents, what was the biggest change that happened over 5 years in their lives? What had happened that they didn't expect that was life-changing, when they were your age? Because the thing is that no matter how successful we are as leaders, as planners, our experience is statistically irrelevant on the scale of all of the things that have happened to humanity. So if we just ask other people, that gives us an understanding not necessarily of what will happen next, but the range of the possible, the range of the plausible. The second thing I would say, think about in the events business, what does the world look like 5 years from now, right? A lot will change. We'll have virtual reality, we'll have AI, we'll have, a different economic environment. But we know the demographics. We know how old the people in the industry are. We know where the conference centers will be too expensive or too inexpensive because of the demographics in those areas, right? I live in San Francisco. Guess what? We've had a hard time. It's too expensive to run a show here. We could have known that 15 years ago and planned for it. We didn't. You can start to think about what can you automate using artificial intelligence. Yes, it's a couple of years out from really moving from something that's really fun on YouTube and that you can do cool demos with to something that's going to be in every enterprise. But the technology is here right now, and we can start to see the trajectory of what happens next. And so how do you take that step back and not ask, what can we imagine about the future, but what do we actually know? And what are the implications? And what are the small decisions I can take today to drive flexibility moving forward? What are the small decisions I can take today, knowing what happens next, to make sure that the downsides, that I'm clipping them off of my decision tree, and I'm taking all of those upsides, I'm taking all of those opportunities. Because when we think a couple of steps out about where we need to be, it becomes really obvious often what we need to do now, what we need to do next.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and I think of our audience, and I know they're listening intently. It is a mindset, and you laid out some really clear steps. I think that whether it's meeting planners, which are most of our audience, and I'm talking to our audience members directly, what they think of as far as what Jonathan has said so far with regard to this mindset.